The new Stargate series will obviously be woke. Yes, the accusations have already started. The fear has already started. I'm already getting loads of comments about it. Because Amazon cannot be trusted. Welcome to the Attack and Pulse, your place for sci-fi news, rumour and debate.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Okay, this is going to get people going. But Stargate was woke occasionally. It just was. But it was done so well, no one cared. And obviously it was well before the term woke even appeared. But I would actually argue, just in the same way that Star Trek, TNG, etc., if it was done now, that would accused of being woke as well. Because they do explore certain parts of human society, culture, our own behaviours and beliefs in different ways, as sci-fi always does. Stargate was no different. You know, we had episodes where Samantha Carter was beating up men because, you know, misogyny and things like that. So, a little bit of what some people would consider to be wokeness is all I call as sci-fi. But the difference is, recently we've had some sci-fi that wasn't great. It was done in a way that was actually shoving some of these things down our throat. It wasn't really a metaphor, which I think a lot of sci-fi uses metaphor. It uses the future of space, etc., to explore a lot of these actual things and things that are going on in our current culture, etc., in a way that isn't sort of in the face. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be very unsubtle. Remember in Star Trek, the guy, black on one face side, white on the other, was not subtle, but it was still a metaphor for a really big problem within culture at the time. But Martin Gero is going to be, I hope I'm saying Gero right, Martin Gero is going to be a big part of what this is, because he's showrunning, he's writing, he is going to be the main man behind Stargate. So, let's have a quick look at what he's done in the past and then try to consider whether we are worried that this is genuinely actually going to be something that is just a woke mess. I hate using that term, I really do, but it has sort of gone into the national consciousness as a thing that describes a lot of poor sci-fi and poor television shows in the last few years. So, he actually started his career pretty much on Stargate. He wrote several episodes of SG-1, SGU, SGA. He was actually a creative consultant on Stargate Atlantis, I think, but I might have to double check that. And he was executive producer and consulting producer on a couple of those seasons as well. After he left Stargate, where he got an excellent education, working with Brad Wright, Joseph Malozzi, etc., he actually went on to work on Dark Matter, a brilliant sci-fi series that I don't think anyone could point at and go, that's woke. It was a relatively low-budget series. It's one of those series that sort of really got a sort of a cult status, and there's constant rumours about it coming back. There were rumours again about a year ago about it getting a continuation, which I think would have been very cool, but it never quite gets over the line. But he was a consulting producer on that, which basically means he was very much involved in the day-to-day of running the series. So basically, executive producers kind of act as a go-between between the studio and the set, whereas producers are actually sort of on the set and they do a lot of work with the director and the writers and things, making sure the show's going in the right direction. So a consulting producer would be actually consulting with the writers, consulting with the director, actually creatively being involved in how the show ends up. He then went on, though, to do Blind Spot, where he was the showrunner. And he actually wrote 5 episodes, I think. Blind Spot was, at least initially, a massive success. I think the first season was pretty much like the most watched thing on TV that year. It was an enormous success, at least initially. Now, don't get me wrong, the other 4 seasons sort of wandered a little bit. They weren't amazing at times. I think it's one of those shows that it's set up so much to begin with, a bit like something like Lost maybe, that it was a little bit hard to follow up. But actually the 3rd, 4th, 5th seasons were fine. They just didn't meet up to the expectations because the first season was so good. But, again, nobody's going to point woke at that. It was sort of almost like an old school kind of thriller. spy thriller, mystery, etc., etc. There's just like, how many tattoos has this woman got? He then went on to do something that people are going to point at and have concerns about, because he was the showrunner for the reboot of Quantum Leap. Now, I actually think he did that quite cleverly, because again, it wasn't really a hard reboot. It was kind of a continuation. It was kind of supposed to be following on from what happened. And Scott Bakula's character of our Sam was supposed to really kind of still be out there. They were going to actually answer some of those questions, apparently, eventually. Now, I never watched the second season. I just couldn't be bothered. I didn't love the first season, if I'm honest, but it did get better. Towards the end of the second half of the first season, it was improving. There were characters in there, though, that people were not happy about. And I don't agree, personally. But there was a fella wearing makeup or whatever. He was, people pointed at that. It's not fair, but people did it. I actually don't think, other than that, there was particularly anything woke in this. Okay, it was a diverse cast. People have already started saying that sort of thing. It's going to be a diverse cast. SG-1 was relatively diverse, really, you could argue. There was diversity in Stargate across all 3 seasons. Quantum Leap is really the only thing that this chap has done that I'm point at and go, But Steven Spielberg didn't hit every movie and every series out of the park. He just didn't. I don't think there's been a creative ever that has everything they've done has been just amazing. There are always going to be certain things that aren't great, and all you got to do is basically hope that he learns his lessons from that. But everything else he's done has been relatively impressive. As I say, Blind Spot was a huge success. He's done a couple of other things that didn't really have a massive impact. But Blind Spot was very successful, and obviously he was part of that creative team that brought us SG-1, SG-A, and SG-U in the first place. He's also got the backing of Brad Wright and Joseph Malozzi. And again, Joseph Malozzi in particular is not woke. The man actually has some quite strong conservative beliefs. He is actually a climate change denier. And, these sorts of things that on the right would be considered kind of mainstream. So he may bring a politics to this that may balance certain things out. Because Brad Wright is, a bit more liberal. So I think actually there is a possibility of, at least from a political point of view here, having a nice balance. I don't think Joseph Malozzi would bring particularly politics into the story. But as an executive producer, my point is that he's there and there is potentially that balance. So, I don't think we have to worry particularly about this being woke. And there is another reason for it. There's the Rings of Power problem. Rings of Power had an awful lot of hate aimed at it very early on because there were fears that this was going to be a diverse, etc., and it was not going to be true to the original storyline. And in lots of ways, it wasn't. I personally didn't have a problem with it. Again, I actually think a lot of things are in Tolkien's writing that actually supported a lot of the decisions that were made. But there was a lot of anger aimed at it. And that affected the viewing figures immediately. There was a lot of people that had decided well before the show ever came out what it was going to be. Amazon do not want that to happen again. And this is why it is so important that, for one, Martin Giro is the showrunner. He's got a big history with Stargate, but you're bringing in some fresh blood as well to bring in different ideas at the same time. But Brad Wright and Joseph Malozzi are going to be executive producers. They are going to be creative consultants. They are going to be in the background making sure this keeps going in the right direction. I think that is the big, important part of this conversation, that it's the original creators coming back as part of a team to bring us this new show in universe that we can all get excited about. Let's not start shouting woke at this just yet. Let's not worrying about that this might be some sort of hot mess and it's going to let down the original series just yet. Let's bask in the excitement of what Amazon are actually doing here. Bringing back the team that we want to do a series that we want, to expand a universe we love, and to hopefully bring us something that we can absolutely adore. We've waited a long time for it. Bring it on. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out and you'll never miss any of our new videos. Also, you can become a member of the channel and get to see a lot of these videos before everybody else. Go check it out. As always, please stay safe and I'll see you next time.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.